and welcome to The Verdict, where true crime meets the courtroom. I'm your host, Celeste, and each week, a co-host and I will dive deep into different criminal court cases. We will explore the contents of the case, evidence presented, and prominent arguments made by both sides. Today, I'm joined by true crime enthusiast Emily Vasquez.
Hey, that's me. I don't have a cool intro, but just know. Okay.
And today, we're going to be discussing the case of the Scream Killers. And for any of you guys who don't know what, Scream is, it's a movie franchise that came out in the late 90s to 2000s.
Yeah.
And basically it follows these two teenagers who, end up killing their classmates.
Right.
And Emily and I, we were talking about this before, just how, relevant it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that first movie came out in, I want to say 2000.
Right.
I don't know exactly when.
Yeah, the exact date, but,
this, I think it was, February or March, the sixth one came out. And we're the same age as, these,
the people we're going to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, we're the same age as they were then, 16, 17, in, the junior year of high school. So it's just
everything's
crazy.
lining up,
Everything
right?
is we were born, or I was born, the same year that this happened. And now we're the same age.
Yeah.
That it happened now. So it's definitely sad, but
yeah, it's something to think about. It is crazy.
It is. So this case follows, the two 16-year-old boys by the names of Tori Adamkick and Brian Draper. And these two were fixated on horror movies, like we mentioned before, Scream. They wanted to be these famous killers that, were able to kill their, classmates. Mm-hmm. And for no reason either.
Yeah, so they didn't have any motivation besides.
They just needed,
killing, right?
Someone. And, even in one of his interrogation tapes that we'll look into later, Brian, when asked his favorite movie, he states that it was Halloween. Mm-hmm. And, there was a interview that came out, I think it was a year ago, following them after prison. And even still, Brian, he claims that he felt resignation with the Columbine shooters.
Yeah.
Which was something that was, very common, after the wake of something, a tragedy that happened.
Yeah.
And, even back to, the relevance of it. We're still, in high school and stuff like this is still happening. So, a lot of people, I think they found, that, I guess, outlet for anger.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I feel like it doesn't freak me out as much as it should, but, it's very, common.
It's very,
thing.
This mindset that people have where it's well, I can take out, my lack of control and my power on these people.
Right.
And that's, what they did when they had the opportunity. Mm-hmm. Their classmate, Cassie Jo Stoddart, she was house sitting for her aunt and uncle over the weekend. And she thought that they were, her friends. She was comfortable with them talking, and they had found out that she was going to be home alone, and they took their chance.
Yeah.
And some tapes that we're going to follow later, even, they claimed that it was the quote-unquote perfect opportunity, for, taking,
the life of someone,
the life of someone. So Cassie, she was house sitting, she was excited. She invites over the two boys and her boyfriend, Matt Beckham. She invites them over to the house on Friday night so that they can all hang out,
Mm-hmm.
On the day of, the murder, or the night of the murder, I should say. Cassie, her boyfriend, and, the two boys, they're watching a movie, eating popsicles, they're doing teen stuff.
Teen stuff, right.
A
regular fun night.
Yeah, you don't really think of anything that's going to happen. So, they're doing their teen stuff, and then, Brian and Tori leave.
Yeah.
And I think it's about, an hour after the lights go out. And the lights go out, the power goes out, and, Cassie's clearly afraid.
Yeah.
And I think one of the saddest parts about the case is that, her boyfriend, Matt, was there, and he offered to stay the night. And when, his mom said no, they even, both the mom and Matt, they offered to take her home. And her being, the responsible girl that she was, she's like, no, I have to, let the dogs out in the morning. I made a commitment, and unfortunately, the choice proved to be, fatal. And one of the like saddest things when it comes to these cases is the what ifs.
Right. Like, let me tell you, I would not hesitate.
I would leave.
I would
Yeah.
leave.
But
I would probably
blame
like
her.
call my dad, to be honest, and be like, you know, the lights went out, puppy.
I
don't
know. I
stay
don't know what
here.
to do.
Yeah.
And you know, I just, even in like their final moments, I mean, because you don't think
anything's gonna happen, right?
And she, scared as she was, she stuck to what she was supposed to do, and it's just really sad.
Yeah, you don't think you're gonna get murdered by two people like that, you know.
And so, you know, he leaves at around, I think it was like 11 p.m. And you know, an hour after, or I think it was like 30 minutes, I don't know the exact time, Brian and Tori come back sometime in the night, and you know, they kill her.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to think.
Yeah. No, it really is. I don't know. This gives me trust issues.
It does. It genuinely, I was like, I'm never telling anyone I'm home alone. Yeah. I remember that was my first revelation after like learning this case. Like, my parents would always be like, don't tell anyone that, you know, you're home alone because you don't know what can happen. And I was like, it's fine. You know, we're 12. What are they going to do? Well, these guys were 14. Not 14. They were 16. And,
same difference, right?
You know, so it's definitely trust issues, you know.
Trust issues for sure.
For sure. So, after, you know, the murder, I believe it was, I don't know the exact day. It was either a day or 2 days after the family comes back. And the saddest, it's so sad, her cousin, I believe it was her cousin, was the one that found her body.
No.
And, you know, from then it was just finding out who were the last, like, people that were there. Who were, like, and, you know, there was only 3. So the, you know, detectives were able to, you know, identify them and, you know, bring them into custody for interrogation.
Right.
So 4 days after the murder, these 3 boys are taken in. I think the first one taken in is Tori, and then Brian, and then Matt, which Matt is where we kind of get the genuine what happened, the actual story, because when you're watching these interrogation tapes, you know, you're watching these 2 boys recall what happened that night. And, you know, knowing now, of course, like, watching back, like, you know that they're not being truthful.
Right.
And one of the things that I think really encapsulates how young these boys are is the way their story completely falls apart.
Right.
You know, when, you know, you're doing something like this, you think that you're so smart. You think that you've thought of everything, that you've done, you know, everything. But then, you know, you get in that room and, you know.
Yeah, you fall apart.
Which is, you know, what they did.
Even people that, like, I've seen, like, people that, like, are completely innocent and didn't commit the crime.
And still.
They still get nervous.
And they still get nervous. And that's a natural, you know, thing. But, you know, you see these boys who, in their tapes, are so confident. You know, they want to be these famous, you know, killers.
Yeah.
And, you know, just, it shows the maturity level.
Right.
Or for lack thereof.
Yeah.
So it's definitely realistic. For sure. Like, within, you know, the tapes, like, the interrogation tapes, I mean, like, midway point, you know, they just start blaming each other.
Yeah.
And it is, and that's real. Like, that's what, you know, teenagers do. Like, oh, I didn't, you know, forget to do this. It was him. Or I didn't, like, do that. It was him. So
shifting the blame to literally anything.
A lot. And, you know, it just, it's sad that they were so young.
I think that's, like, what's shown the most in
worst,
this.
like, case is that they're so young. Like, they're 16. I'm 16.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, we...
And, And it, obviously it doesn't come with age, but, like, you know, you just, like, you start to think, like, they had their whole lives ahead of them.
They did.
And they decided to do this. Like,
and Cassie had her whole life.
Yeah, her whole life.
And they took that, you know, away from her.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's, I think, the most angering part of cases like these is these young people who, you know, get their lives taken from them because of immaturity.
Yeah.
Because of this wanting to be, you know, seen and famous. And
no, for sure. And I think this interrogation really, like
it really
encapsulates, like, their minds and, like,
their, you know, mindset. So Tori's interrogation, you know, it starts off as, you know, what their story was. So both of their stories coincide to a certain point. And the point is, the Thursday prior, they're talking to Cassie. They find out that she's going to be home alone. And, you know, they plan to meet up. They plan to hang out. And they, you know, they go to her house the next night. And, you know, they watch movies. They're eating popsicles. And, you know, they're doing, you know, what they said they do. Teenage stuff. Yeah. They leave. And here's what, you know, their claim is. So these boys, right after they leave Cassie's house, they claim that they went to a movie. They go to a movie, and then they go home. They reportedly went back to Draper's house, Brian Draper's house. And then the story shifts. And one of the main reasons was, and going back to, you know, really emphasizing the fact that they're 16, is that when the detectives, you know, asked, you know, okay, you went to the movies, what was the movie about?
Yeah.
They could not, neither of the boys could not, you know, recollect what the movie was about. Yeah. You know, the excuses, they're like, oh, we weren't, you know, paying attention to it, but they were not buying it. Yeah. And then there was also an inconsistency with time. You know, the time of the movie theater, when they got there, you know, what time the movie started. So their story shifts a little bit. It goes from right after they go to the movies. Yeah. But then they claim that they left the house. They went to the movies. They went to break into cars. Yeah. And then they went home. Or this was from, like, Brian's perspective. Yeah. Then they went home.
That after
the fact. Yeah. After the fact. And one of my favorite, you know, tricks, I guess, because I call them tricks, that detectives use when interrogating these people is they will use the other person against them. Right. So they will be like, oh, well, Brian already told me this. So if you fess up, we can get you a deal. Or Tori already told me this. So if you fess up, you know, we'll give you a deal. And there were multiple, you know, interrogations that went on. Yeah. But this was just the first one where, you know, they're claiming everything, and, you know, they're just getting a straight story. So, you know, they get the story, the second interrogation. You know, they're kind of going over everything, and they're realizing that there's some inconsistencies. And, you know, Brian's interrogation is very interesting to me because his story changes the most, you know, drastically. And instead of, you know, I think he was the first to, I guess, break. Yeah. You know, I think a lot of people see, you know, Tori as, like, the ringleader, but these boys were equally responsible.
Yeah, no, for sure.
You know, like, they were equally wanting to, you know, do it, but I think that, you know, because Tori was more vocal about it, you know, it was, you know, kind of a way to exploit that.
Yeah, shift the blame. In a way. And I think that's a good word for it, like, vocal.
Like, they very, like, he was very
you see, like, in the tapes and everything, like, he's kind of, like, the one, I guess, like, instructing, but at the end of the day, they both wanted to do it.
They both wanted to do it. They both had, like, they knew. And so, you know, his story goes from, you know, yeah, we went to the movies, and then we went to my house, and then it changes to, okay, we went back to the house. And one thing I do want to mention is that when they were in the house the first time, they went through the entire house, like, as a tour, and they unlocked the doors. The back door, which is what, you know, he confesses to. You know, he claims that he was in the house, he unlocked the back door, they came back in, and Tori stabbed her. And, you know, as we'll see, like, she was stabbed numerous times by multiple knives. So, of course, that, you know, story doesn't add up, but the detectives don't know that. Yeah. So, you know, they're going in, you know, they're talking, and he's like, yeah, like, I was there. Yeah. And then it shifts again, gradually. His shifts very gradually. Yeah. And I think you can kind of see the brain, like, the shifting. Wheels turning. Shifting. Yeah. You know, they're like, look, I don't think you could do this, which is what detectives always say. Yeah. You know, I saw this thing, it was like, if detectives are believing you, I think you know there's something going on. Story shifts from, you know, I was there, but I didn't stab her. You know, I was just a witness. And then it shifts again to where, you know, he was there, and, you know, Tori stabbed her. Yeah. But then Tori instructs Brian to, you know, saying, like, you need to make sure that, you know, she's dead. Like, and so he stabs her. And I think he claims that he stabbed her in the leg first. And then, you know, Tori's pressuring him. He's like, no, you need to make sure that she's dead. And then that's why, you know, Brian, you know, stabs. Yeah. Of course, you know, after the evidence comes out, it's... right. But, you know, just the fact that he never fully confesses. So it still shows, that, like, he wants to still, self-preservation, self-survival. But it's still that, like, child, like, in him. Like, he knows he's getting in trouble, so let me try to get in as least trouble as possible. As I can.
So, first, it's like, I
didn't do anything. I didn't stab her. He was stabbed her. This is my friend. I was just going along with him. He was going to kill me.
Yeah.
And then it was I stabbed her because he told me to.
Yeah, I only did it because I didn't want to do it. Yeah.
I didn't want to do it. Well, as we're about to see, that was not the case at all. So towards the end of the interrogation, Brian gives up the location of where all of the evidence is buried.
Wow.
It's buried in Black Rock Canyon. Obviously a place that they thought was not going to be found.
Right.
And so, they lead them there, and they find a plethora of evidence.
Yeah.
They find, like, I have a list here. So, they found a box of stick matches, a melted down bottle of hydrogen peroxide, a pair of black boots, which were proven to be Brian's, a black Calvin Klein dress shirt that was proven to be Brian's, a black Hager shirt that was proven to be Tori's, partially burned notebook paper that was revealed to be Tori's handwriting. They also found 2 dagger-style knives, a silver/black handled knife with a smooth blade, a folding knife, red and white mask, latex gloves, and videotapes.
Yeah. Wait, so Brian led them to this evidence knowing that he was in the videotape? Yeah. What did he think was going to happen?
I think his idea was that, he was getting a deal. He's helping them out.
Yeah.
So he's going to get in less trouble
than Tori.
Which, as we've seen, was not the case.
Not the case at all. Yeah.
And what makes this case so prominent and so interesting, what drew me to the case, were the tapes, the videotapes.
Oh, yeah.
These boys record the past, 2 days leading up to the murder. They record them at school, planning the murder, writing down, a list of names, a list of things that they needed. And they record video diaries of moments right before the murder and right after the murder.
Oh, wow.
And they also record, the night before, saying that, they were going to kill Cassie. And I think it's so just...
That's where you see, the type of murders they are. The arrogance and the pride.
Heavy pride. Even, talking in these tapes is just, terrifying. Yeah. And that was, what the main thing that was okay, we got them. They recorded everything.
Literally
they recorded everything. So we are going to show some of these tapes, but they're definitely graphic. There's some graphic language in there, so viewer discretion do be advised. So on the day before the murder, Thursday, September 21st, Brian and Tori filmed themselves at school. They filmed themselves walking at school. And at one of the most chilling parts of that tape, even when they're talking, vile and arrogantly, about murder, one of the chilling parts of that tape is in the tape you can see Cassie.
Yeah.
They record her, they say hi, they're, your friend, oh, have you seen Tori? What's going on? And, it's just the trust.
You know what I think is so, creepy about these tapes? I just realized, it all connected, that the things, the tone of voice that they use is very, normal. Very normal, very, regular boyish talk. As if they were talking about football or something.
Right.
But the words coming out of their mouth are, not at all normal.
They're pure
and
evil.
I think that's what's so eerie about, these tapes.
This kid, yeah.
And I think, it should be obvious, right? That they're not, sound mind.
Right.
But just the fact that this is how they think, they think this is normal.
They think that it's normal. And, even when they're rationalizing. And one of the tapes that we're about to display to you of, Tori and Brian, talking about the murder is they're well, just because it's when it's wrong, people want to do it more.
Right.
If you restrict people from someone, they're going to want to do it more.
Again, putting the blame
on something and someone else, and just saying, we want to do it.
Yeah.
So they record on Thursday, and then they record on Friday. This tape is an audio of what was said on Thursday in regarding the murder.
We'll stay tuned. We found our victim, and sad as it may be, she's our friend. But you know what? We all have to make sacrifices. Our first victim is going to be Cassie Stoddart and her friends.
Turn your brights off, asshole.
Well, we'll find out if she has friends over. She's going to be alone in a big, dark house out in the middle of nowhere. How perfect can you get? I mean, holy shit, dude.
You just thinking about it.
Hell yeah. So we're gonna kill her and her friends, and we're gonna keep moving on. I heard some news about Kirsten. She's gonna be home alone from 6 to 7. So we might kill her, then drive over to Cassie's thing, and scare the shit out of them, and kill them one by one.
Maybe a
2 by 2, and 3 by 3. Because we gotta keep it classy. So yeah,
classy.
it's gonna be extra fun.
You're evil.
So are you?
No, evil is an expression of God. That was another test you failed.
Evil is not an expression of God.
Yes, it is.
Okay, they were sick psychopaths that get pleasure of killing other people.
That sounds good, baby.
We're gonna go down in history. We're gonna be just like Scream, except real life terms.
That
We're gonna be
sounds
murderers.
good, baby.
Like, let's see, Ted Bundy, like the Hillside Strangler,
No.
the Zodiac Killer.
Those people are more amateurs compared to what we're gonna be. We're gonna be more of higher sources of
Gene. Well, except we're not that sick and that twisted.
Oh, do you know what Gene's words were?
What?
Saw a girl walking down the street, right?
Yeah.
2 questions came to his head. I can take her out, have a nice time with her,
The killer?
and show her a
Get
good
her
time,
alive?
show him the pants off her. Or, I wonder what her head would look like on a stick.
Holy shit.
That's creepy,
Yes.
huh?
Murder is power, murder is freedom. Goodbye.
Murder is power. Murder is freedom. Where do you know, I just, think as a teen, freedom is a very, important thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a...
To them, it was like they wanted the power, they wanted the control, and that was their definition of freedom.
And they're just, we want to be famous.
Mm-hmm.
We want to be famous, and we don't care. One thing that, I think is really, interesting is when you're watching these tapes, they don't address the murder head on. They address the fact that they're murdering someone. They address the fact that they're going to be, famous killers like Ted Bundy, as, they say, like the Scream killers, but real life. But they don't address the person that they're killing.
Yeah.
They don't address the fact that we're actually going to take a life.
It kind of seems like there's a disconnect between
There's a very heavy
their fantasy of being famous murderers
and the fact that she's a real person.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just watching these tapes. We had to stop midway when we were researching, and we really just had to be wow.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure.
And we read that these tapes were in court. And so imagine her family having to watch that, and just see these 2 teenage boys talk about becoming famous and murdering it. Just,
and I think with a lot of convictions, lawyers tend to play the remorse card. Oh, but he feels sorry about it, so that kind of means that they're still human in them.
But there was no remorse.
And I think these tapes were prominent to that. They could not play that card even if they wanted to.
Even what we're about to show right before the murder, when they realize that it is Cassie that they're gonna kill, they're excited. They're excited and they're giddy, they're
that's a good word for it.
Going to a party or something. They're so
they're ready. They're trying to pump themselves up.
Yeah, they're hyping themselves up. Just saying we're gonna do this. I'm so excited. And it's we'll just show it. We'll just let you, because there's just some things that
that cannot be explained in words. Literally, see for yourself.
Time is 9:50, September 22nd, 2006. Unfortunately, we have the grueling task of killing our 2 friends, and they are right in a house just down the street.
We just talked to them. We were there for an hour. But
We checked out the whole house. We know there's lots of doors. There's lots of places to hide. I unlocked the back doors. It's all locked. Now we just gotta wait. And yeah, we're really nervous right now, but we're ready.
we're listening to the greatest rock band
We've
ever,
waited for this for a long time.
Pink Floyd, before we commit the ultimate crime of murder.
We waited for this for a long time.
A long time.
We'll stay tuned.
One of the not worst parts, but one of the, parts that stood out to me was when they said to the FBI, you weren't quick enough.
Yeah.
And, unfortunately, looking back, like, they were right. And, when you look at it and you see these like two foolish boys, they're talking and they're going in about like their plans to kill, and they say the words, they're our friends, but sacrifices have to be made.
Yeah. So there really wasn't it wasn't Matt or Cassie, they didn't have anything against them.
No.
Personally,
They wanted to kill for no reason.
Yeah, they wanted. I think it had to do a lot with the reenactment of Scream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even just we talk about a lot, the arrogance of these boys, and just the
pride.
And it really shows how overwhelming it can be. And just hearing like you were talking about before, just hearing these two boys talk about it so casually.
Yeah.
They're doing something normal.
Yeah.
They're doing something normal, and it's just
or the footage afterwards, after they're done doing the murder, I think that's one of the most gut-wrenching, heart-dropping moments. Minutes before this tape was recorded, they carried out the murder of their friend.
And we're about to play the clip right now. Again, it has very strong language.
Yeah.
So be advised.
Just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a joke. I stabbed her in the throat and I saw her lifeless body just disappear. Dude, I just killed Cassie. Oh, fuck. That felt like really real. I mean, it went by so fast.
We gotta get our act straight.
It's okay. Okay. What else do I have to take a
Okay.
No. Bye.
The just sheer
I don't think the word in awe is correct, but just
shocked.
Yeah.
It's just their lack of regard. Minutes before, this just took place.
Yeah.
And you see these boys, full of adrenaline and fear of full of energy. Oh, we just killed Cassie. We just did this, we just did that. And instead of we just killed Cassie, there's no remorse. There's excitement, and that's terrifying.
I wonder how much of it it's real, if they're actually as excited as they say they are. I think they are, but yeah.
It's just gut-wrenching.
Yeah.
And I'm so, glad that they were caught when they were. Because, these boys, they don't display any remorse. They display excitement, adrenaline, same adrenaline that you would get from playing soccer.
Yeah.
From winning or from riding a roller coaster. Yeah. You get off that ride and you're like, whoa, I just rode that. We just did, it was just so fun.
Yeah, it doesn't feel real.
It doesn't feel real. Like they said, it doesn't feel real. And they're getting that from, this poor girl's, pain.
Yeah.
And, it's just... And the way that they switch completely after, okay, we need to get our stuff together.
Yeah.
We need to buy a ticket. We need to move on so that we don't get caught.
Yeah. And so the detectives, they find this, right?
They find this. And so these detectives, they take Tori, they take Brian back into investigation. They get the full story.
Yeah.
They're we saw the tapes. We saw, what was said. And, that's when they're arrested. So Tori's trial took place May 31st of 2007. And during the trial, the jury heard extensive testimonies from two expert witnesses. The first one was a medical examiner, Dr. Steve Skumal, who performed the autopsy on Stoddart 3 days after her murder. And Dr. Skumal, he determined that the cause of his death was the cause of her death was stab wounds.
Yeah.
He documented 30, 12 of which were potentially fatal. They also had a forensic pathologist, Dr. Garrison, who examined her body after the fact. And he testified, and this is a direct quote, "It's my opinion that there were at least 2 knives used, one of which was a non-serrated blade, and the other was a serrated blade. So majority of the wounds that, were inflicted were caused by 2 separate knives." Mm-hmm. So this already added to evidence that it was clear that it was 2 people who were in on it already. And along with that, evidence was the tapes where, they discussed their plan. Yeah. They discussed, after it. And, the weapons and, the clothes and the masks that were all there. They also were presented with the 2 fatal knives with, fingerprints that were on them. And, all of the evidence was there.
Yeah.
Like, even without the tapes,
Clear as day, for sure.
Yeah. And on August 21st of 2007, both of them were convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Mm-hmm. They both received a mandatory sentence without possibility of parole, and 30 years to life for conspiracy to murder. And still, even now, they are serving time at Idaho State Corrections.
Right.
So they are, and both of the, boys, or many motions were denied. And I don't want to get into that because
they're still, serving time.
They're still serving time, and just the continuance of what was really frustrating me was the continuance of the ways that they would find to try and appeal their cases. And of course, and I think that, even the judges, they agreed. Yeah. With one of, Brian Draper's judge that was assigned to his case, he claimed that if Draper were released, and this is a quote, "he would kill again. I'm convinced of that beyond a reasonable doubt."
Mm-hmm. And I think with a lot of these cases, a lot of the times the criminals try to get off, basically on good behavior, trying to show remorse, trying to, especially with teenage cases, since they're so young. Once they get to maybe their 40s and stuff, they're like, I was young, I feel bad.
And they had a fixed sentence, after their continuous, they have a fixed sentence. They're still there, today. So there's no, there's no.
Yeah, and the fact that they're trying to get out because of tiny little legal kind of shows that it's they know they don't feel bad. They know that if they were released, they would get.
I think I think specifically because this time was they stopped appealing after 2009.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, and I think a lot of people, they talk about they had their whole life ahead of them, and they're they're in jail, they're serving for a mistake they made with kids.
Yeah.
Cassie had her whole life ahead of her.
Exactly.
She was 16. I mean, think of, we mentioned before, we're around the same age. Mm-hmm. She had so much ahead of her.
Yeah.
And her life was taken.
For sure.
And for, as we, saw, as they admitted, for no reason. Mm-hmm. So, with cases like these, I know it's very easy when it's young people and you feel sympathy. Mm-hmm. And, maybe they are remorseful. Yeah. There is an interview you can watch online, where they're I think it was a year ago. Mm-hmm. They may be remorseful, but they may, be sorry, but Cassie's not here to accept that apology.
Exactly. And I think, honestly, true remorse is making up for your crimes. That's my mentality. I think if you were really sorry, you would kind of want to stay there and serve your time. You'd feel so guilty because, honestly, there's no way you can make up for your life. Your life was taken away, and you can't bring that back. So, if you really felt bad, I feel like you would want to stay and serve that time. So, I don't know. That's my mentality. And I do hate that argument, they were so young.
They were so young. She was so young.
Yeah.
And think about, even Matt, her boyfriend, he had to, just imagine the guilt that he, felt leaving. And something else that I found out when I was researching is that the reason that he couldn't stay over was because that was the same night that his dad got out of rehab.
Oh, wow.
So, just being that young and having to deal with all that, just grieving, and her family. So, it's definitely a very sad and, devastating case.
Yeah. Honestly, it is with a lot of murders, but I think specifically when the murders are carried out at such a young age. With young people, like, it just makes you think, what led up to, like, to make it so that, like, these people had to not only, like, carry out the murders, but to, like, die at age 16.
At age 16, it's just...
You know, she was a junior. She didn't even get to apply to any colleges.
No.
During her senior year. You know, she didn't get her prom. She didn't get a wedding.
She was just a teenage girl who was excited to spend time with her friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that proved to be, fatal.
Yeah, for sure.
This has been The Verdict, Inside Criminal Court Cases. I want to give a special thank you to my co-host of the week, Emily Vasquez.
You're so welcome.
If you want to find us, we're on Instagram at The Verdict Podcast, where all of our streaming platforms are listed. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.